Hi, I'm Nina Cooke, and thank you so much for joining me today for the Entrepreneur's Inner Game podcast. I'm super excited to have a very, very special guest with me today, Andrea Waltz. Andrea is the co-author of the fantastic book, Go for No. Yes is the destination, and no is how you get there. This book teaches salespeople in any industry how to overcome their fear of failure and rejection. Along with her husband and business partner, Richard Fenton, they've spoken all over the US and the UK, teaching the Go for No strategies. Go for No is the #1 hit on Amazon's selling list and has remained in the top 20 of sales books for over the last 8 years. Andrea, welcome. And I'm so looking forward to talking with you about the mindset, the inner game for salespeople.
Thank you, Nina. It's so great to be with you.
I've read your book, and I don't normally endorse my guests' products, but this is a fantastic book. It's super short, easy read, and I used it myself when I was going through a period of cold calling, and I hated no. I really feared rejection, and this really helped me. So please share the philosophy of this book.
Absolutely. So it's very counterintuitive, and it is perfect for anyone who hates the word no, which I think is so many of us, right? Yes. We've all been taught and trained to avoid rejection, to not want to fail, to not want to hear the word no. And I think we all suffer from it. So this book has a very counterintuitive message, which is in order to be more successful, in order to hear yes in your endeavors, in your business, and whatever it is that you're doing, you want to actually be okay with hearing no, and you actually want to go for no. You want to hear more no's. So in other words, what we do is instead of telling you, oh, you don't want to be rejected, you don't like rejection, fine, avoid it. We say, no, let's embrace it. Let's actually run towards the thing that we fear and learn to take this negative reality that's out there and turn it into a positive. In other words, we want to change the way we think about failure and rejection. And one of the things in the book, Nina, and I know you know this, is we spend a lot of time in the beginning about failure, just talking about not fearing failure, not having failure be the end of the world, embracing failure, that you can survive it, and it can actually build your confidence when you do survive a failure, and to use that to your advantage, right? To use that to your advantage. So Go for No is all about intentionally increasing your failure rate in order to achieve success. And the great salespeople out there, and you don't have to even be a salesperson, a business owner of any kind, at some point you're going to have a sales conversation. At some point you're going to have to ask, and I call these Go for No moments. There's that moment where you have to say, so would you like to get started? Would you like to sign up? Can I, should we work together? All of these are Go for No moments where the person that you're talking to is going to say, yes, I'm ready, or I don't know, I don't think so. And those moments are the moments where we have to make sure that we're asking those and achieving those moments a lot in business, rather than trying to avoid those moments, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It sounds brilliant, but it seems to me that this could be a challenge for most people who will do everything they can to avoid those situations where they may get a no. And this has an impact on our business and our income, doesn't it, if we're avoiding those moments? You said embrace rejection and embrace failure. How do we do that?
Such a challenge to do that, because it's been instilled for so long that failure is not a good thing. We all want to be successful. We don't want to feel or look like failure. Failure is seen as so negative. So how you embrace that is actually by, one, giving yourself permission to fail and remembering what it was like when you were a kid. And we were so much better as kids in being okay with failure while we learned to get to success. Now, obviously, it would be crazy if I said, oh, just keep failing and fail forever, right? If failing forever wouldn't work, because then you'd never reach your goals and dreams. So that's why the subtitle of the book is so important. Yes is the destination, but no is how you get there. So it's understanding that we embrace the failures, we give ourselves a chance to learn and grow and figure out what works, just like when we were kids. But when we're adults, for some reason, it's like you're not allowed to do that anymore. You have to go out and on your first conversation, on your first offering, you have to be perfect. You have to get a yes, right? But as kids, when we're learning to do something, when we're learning to tie our shoe or ride a bike or read, we stumble constantly. We fail, and good parents say, yeah, that's great. Try again, and you just move through it. We're not so kind to ourselves as adults. So in order to embrace that failure, we have to start by giving ourselves permission to fail and saying, it's okay, it's part of the process. What did we learn from this? How can we do it differently or better next time? And then next time, try it again. And then go from there. And you may fail over and over, but eventually the yes is out there. Eventually you will see success if you stick with it long enough.
And where does this fear come from? You said it's right from the beginning, we're failing, we're trying to walk, we'd be crawling around on all fours if we gave up the first time we ever tried to walk. So we keep trying again and again. Where does this fear come from?
Well, I think it's very institutionalized. There's a saying, I don't know if you've heard this, but it goes, failure is not an option. And sometimes people like to say that as a way to inspire, right? As a way to say failure is not an option. And the inspiring part of that is, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to make it. The problem with that phrase, and it's well-intentioned meaning, but there's also a pressure that gets put on us that says, well, if failure is not an option and I'm not certain I will be perfect, then perhaps I shouldn't even try. Perhaps it's just I should, instead of trying to start this new business or to get this new client in my business, if failure is not an option, I can't guarantee success, so I just shouldn't try. It's safer not to. And, one of my favorite books is called The Four Agreements. And in that Four Agreements, one of the agreements is to not take things personally. And I think to answer your question is, people don't want to fail because they very much take rejection and no personally. And we very much care too much about what everybody else is thinking about what we're doing. And so you don't want your neighbors or friends and family talking and saying, oh, she started that business, but yeah, it didn't do well. She failed at it. And so now we personally feel like a failure. And in order to not have that pain, we again avoid it. So it really is about the inner game, as your podcast. I mean, the inner game, the inner confidence, the messages that you tell yourself. You really have to put all that aside and say, I'm operating on a different model now, where failure, rejection, and hearing no is part of my path. I don't care what other people think. I'm going to hear no, and I'm going to use that to my advantage going forward and figure out what I can do differently and keep moving on. And eventually I will reach the success I'm going for.
Yes, it's almost saying, okay, however many no's there are, as you say in your book, on the other side of all those no's, there's the yes. And you almost have to, the destination is going through those no's to get the yes. And you may be very, very fortunate in that you can turn, most sales conversations into yeses, but not many of us can do that. That's an awful lot of pressure, isn't it? Which can even stop you from doing that, because it isn't we like to do out and do things perfectly. So we can appear to the outside world as if we've really got it all going. We're really good at what we do. We're achievers, and failure isn't an option because it can be quite humiliating.
Absolutely. And I love that what you just said. Actually, this is really interesting. So a lot of people will ask me, so can I turn a no into a yes, right? And how do I do that? And I always say, first of all, you always do your best, right? When you go out and you do your best with what you have at the time. And no one should ever wait until they're going to be perfect. And I think this is in the same type of conversation, people wait, they want to wait till they're perfect so they don't fail, and then they never get started because you're never going to be good enough. You're never ready. So you go out and you have conversations with people and maybe they don't go so well. This is the failure that's okay. You analyze it and you say, okay, what can I do better next time? In terms of taking that no that you get and saying, what could I do? Certainly, there are things that you can do and say in that moment. But what I advise people to do is if you do get a no, and this is a little crazy, it's going to sound a little weird, but think of it as a gift. So if somebody handed you a gift, you would first say, well, what am I going to do with this? Where am I going to put this gift? Should I unwrap it and figure out what it is? And I think being open-minded and curious and saying, I need to do something with this. And so the very first thing I would say is don't let that be the end of the process. Is say to that person who just said no, you can say, oh, okay, absolutely. Be positive, be upbeat, but then in your head, picture that gift and say, what am I going to do with this? And ask the person, so should I recontact you? Perhaps something will change in the next few months. Can we stay in touch? And see if that person says, well, yeah, that sounds good. Or no, I don't think I'm ever going to be interested. And even that is okay because now you got that gift and now you know what to do with it. And you just saved a lot of time in the future. And sometimes I think people think like, oh, that would be horrible and devastating. No, only if you're operating off of a lack mentality, a lack mindset. This is not the last person you're ever going to talk to. This is one of so many. And if you operate with a prosperity opportunity mindset, where if that person really says it's a no now, it's a no 6 months from now, it's a no 5 years from now, then be okay with that and say, all right, great. I got that no, that's great. And now I'm free to explore other opportunities with other people.
That's wonderful. I love that. And there's a business coach. Apparently, he charges hundreds of thousands. And if he gets a no in his head, he just goes next.
Mm-hmm.
Because that one person, as you said, is not going to make or break your business, your life.
It really doesn't. And it's easy when we're first starting out and when we're, it's the opportunities are not all out there, right? You don't have as many conversations. And you just reminded me of something else. I have to share this too. One of the things that we talk about is going fast, is failing fast, going out there and getting a lot of no's. And sometimes what we do, Nina, is because we're so self-protective and we have been taught to avoid failure and avoid rejection, we end up with just a couple opportunities, not enough, right? And so we desperately need those opportunities to turn into yeses. But when you're out there and you have that mindset of, I'm going to bring a lot of people in, I want a lot of conversations, I'm going to fail fast, I want to hear a lot of no's, and I'm not going to worry about the yeses, I'm going to go for no and hear a lot of no's. What happens is that one no that you get, like that gentleman you were just talking about, it's like, great, next. There's so many more opportunities. But when we're protective, and if you said, I've talked to this one person and I have to have this one person say yes, it brings a lot of stress and a lot of pressure into your life. And then the whole thing is stressful and pressure filled, right? When you go for no and you say, I'm going to talk to more people, I'm going to put more, the fishing analogy, more lines in the water, right, for the fish, then you have more opportunities and you're not so devastated when you get that no, if you do get that no.
There's always opportunities, aren't there, to work with people and to have those conversations. I would love to talk more about don't take things personally, because this is something which many of us tend to do, and it hurts, doesn't it? And when they say no to working with us, it can be like they're rejecting us and who we are as a person. But that's not the case, is it?
It really isn't. And I've found, I've worked on this myself for many years.
So have I. And it's made a huge difference. It's turned everything around for me.
It really does. And you have to, I think it starts with really appreciating other people's opinions and the fact that it really isn't about you. It's about what's going on for them. And it may be, and here's the thing, it may be about you. And you may feel like you want to take it personally, and yet it says it is everything about them. So for example, and I love using this example because it's kind of funny, but if you and I were walking down the street and we saw a woman in a beautiful red dress with ladybugs all over it, and I said, that's the most horrible dress I've ever seen. It's horrible. And I told her, I can't even believe you left the house in that dress. That's horrible. And you said, oh my gosh, I love that dress. It's beautiful. Which one of us should she believe, right? Which should she take it personally that I thought it was horrible, or should she believe you that it's in fact beautiful? And the reality is it doesn't matter. We all come from our perspective. For whatever reason, my mindset, my beliefs, my background is saying one thing, and you are coming from a totally different place. And so when we appreciate the differences, the person who rejects you today for whatever quality it may be that they're rejecting you over, someone else is looking for that and is accepting and wanting that exact same quality. And so it really has nothing to do with you. And so it's up to us to find the people that we work best with, right? And in order to do that, that really requires us to talk to enough people, to get out there, be willing to fail, and put ourselves out there more than we do, rather than shrink and hope and wait that someone will find us. We get out there and we say, there's people out there for me, and I'm going to help them find me.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And actually, no's are an opportunity. So if you're having a run of no's in your sales conversations, it means go and do some mindset work, clear your mind, become more confident and resilient, or work on your sales conversation, train with someone to find out, really, really great ways of talking and building rapport with your prospects. So these are just opportunities to learn how to do things better. If you're going to keep doing the same thing again and again without learning, then you may end up getting the same result again and again. So this is just a wake-up call, isn't it? Saying, learn, do something differently. Something that you said in your book, which I found absolutely wonderful and fascinating, is that you said, do something every day that scares you. Or the character in the book said that.
Yeah.
Now, this is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It is, and it's challenging sometimes because it's easy to get complacent. And Richard and I, we always like to say we wrote Go for No because we needed it. If we were fearless people who could talk to anybody and start a conversation at any time, and we, had no problem with no, we could have never written this book, right? So this is a philosophy that's near and dear to our heart, which is you push yourself outside your comfort zone. And it sounds cliche, and people talk about that all the time, right? But it's true. You do have to do the things that scare you, and action is the only antidote to that fear. And I've been an entrepreneur, speaker, author now for almost 20 years. And I know this to be true, is I can get complacent, and the more complacent I get, the more it's easy to just have your comfort zone shrink around you and not want to reach out and not want to try the new thing. But you have to always be doing those things that scare you, that give you a little shot of adrenaline, right? That says, I'm doing something exciting and something different, and more opportunities will come from this.
And it is exciting to do something different, because if you're doing the same stuff every single day, then you tend to just get a little bit bored. But reaching out to people, I love reaching out to people I don't know, because if they say no, that's fine. And if they say yes, that's fantastic. But if you don't do it, then you don't get the thrill of it, do you?
Exactly. It's so true. I love that.
Now, another thing that you said in your book is the most empowering word in the world is no. And again, we said in the beginning of this conversation that this is contrary to what we think, and this contrary to what we're taught, that what we're taught as we're growing up. How do we find that resilience to keep bouncing back from a no?
Yes. And it does sound so crazy because, yes, again, we're all taught and trained, and kind of that message has been imparted and built into us. And so really, I think so much of it has to do with embracing this negative reality that it's not about saying, oh, rejection doesn't exist and you're making it up. It's all in your head. Well, no, you do get no's. It's can I take it and make it as positive and empowering as possible? And here's how you do that. It's you stay in control of the situation. You can't control what other people are going to do or say, right? You can make your best presentation, the one that you practiced for a year, and sit down with somebody that you are absolutely convinced is going to tell you yes, and they can tell you no. And so ultimately you have no control over what they're going to do, but you have control over yourself, right? You could take your worst presentation where you didn't practice and you're tired and you're just, maybe you're depressed, and you could share that with somebody and they could say, oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. Yes, let's go forward. And so, you take control over that, and then it becomes empowering because you don't decide for someone else whether it's yes or no. You let someone else decide whether it's yes or no. And so with that, you really focus on your own behavior.
And in a way, that's detaching from the result, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's a big part of it, is just detaching from the outcome and staying focused. And one of the ways, Nina, that we teach people, and you probably remember this from the book, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead, you may.
No, not at all. This is fascinating.
But we talk about setting no goals. And I don't mean setting no goals, like not having goals at all. Goals are great, right? But setting a goal for the number of no's you're going to hear can be very interesting in your business. It can really change things up, because usually what we do is we all set a goal for the number of yeses we want in our business. So you may say, I want 3 yeses this month. And should you do certain activities and get those 3 yeses, you're done, right? But if you said, I'm going to set a goal and get 20 no's this month, maybe what would end up happening is you would end up with 4 or 5 yeses, because you wouldn't stop. Right? You wouldn't stop at those 3 yeses. You'd keep going in order to get the no's. So setting a goal for the number of no's that you hear is actually a way to focus on the behavior, because it has nothing to do with your final yes goal. It really is about your behavior, which is how many people should I be talking to, sending proposals to, sitting down over coffee with. All of those are the behaviors that if we just focus on those, the yeses will happen. We can detach. We just get to focus on the behaviors that we know, which is really what Go for No is. It's a very behavior focused thing.
I really love this. You turned it on its head. Instead of saying, I would love to book in 3 more clients this month, we say, I'd like to go for 20 no's. And most probably you're going to end up with more than 3 yeses, aren't you, as a result of that?
Yeah, usually you are, because, and Richard and I did this in our own business. We set a no goal. It was crazy. We when we first launched our company, we were setting a yes goal, like 4 yeses a month. And then we said, what would happen if we had 100 companies, because we were out speaking and we were selling workshops and things like that. And we said, what if 100 companies said no to us? What would our business look like? And we had more business than we knew what to do with, because for us, it was just about making calls, sending out packages, getting lots of no's. But then the yeses would start coming in. And instead of saying, oh no, we're done, we have our 4 yeses, we said, well, no, we only have 65 no's. We have more work to do.
Yeah.
And we really changed the way that we operated, and learned a lot from that. And as people who are self-employed entrepreneurs, there's no one choosing your quota, right? I mean, you choose it. And we realized that we had this limit of what we thought we were capable of, because it was like, well, how many yeses could we get? And it was always the lowest amount. It wasn't sky's the limit. What crazy audacious goal could we achieve? It was like, what could we scratch and claw our way to? So it was kind of coming from a limitation mindset, really. Whereas the Go for No made us say, let's just keep out there and keep seeing what we can do.
And having a goal for a certain number of no's in a month, say, that makes you take really big action, doesn't it?
Really big action. Exactly. Consistently, right? Instead of just a little here and then a little there when you need more business, which has caused those entrepreneurs, and it really causes burnout because you're just always on this up and down cycle rather than just staying with it. And that's one of the things that we talk about in our training and things that we do is consistency.
And this is interesting because once you start taking big action and consistent action, then by default, you're going to get much better at those sales conversations. Your confidence and your courage are going to start building because you're going for the opposite of what you think you're going for, but you get more yeses as a result of it. I really love that idea of going for a certain number of goes and setting up sales conversations just to see, or sending out a certain number of emails asking someone to connect with you. And it doesn't matter if you get lots of no's because that's your target.
Oh, exactly. You have it exactly right. And this is how you build your confidence. And it is how you figure out maybe where in the process am I not as good? Where do I seem to be getting more no's? Is it at the beginning or is it when I share my fee? Right. And what am I doing with that maybe I need coaching? As you said earlier, it does, when you do go for no a lot, it allows you to figure out where you maybe need the most help.
And then also you're going to stop taking it personally as well, because you'll be just becoming so used to the no's that it doesn't really matter. And it's just in your head, you'll be thinking next, which is the best way to be. What's the top tip you can share regarding sales conversations?
My favorite top tip is never to make assumptions. And I alluded to this earlier, never to make assumptions about what somebody is going to do, decide, or spend. And I think that we are all guilty of it. I know I am. And that is, we try to be mind readers. We try to say, well, this person is going to say yes because of this reason, or they're going to say no because I heard them say that they're busy or they just had a baby or whatever. We come up with all these reasons, but we don't know, right? We make things up. And so removing those assumptions about what somebody is going to do, what they're going to decide, how much money they have to spend, we have to remove those and just ask the question at the moment and then let them give us the information.
Yeah, so stand in our own space, as it were. Mm-hmm. Second guessing, because when we start second guessing, we start changing our energy, don't we?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic, thank you. And what's your number one mindset tip that you can share with our listeners?
I think my number one mindset tip is really to embrace and come to love the process of failure. That it's the underlying, I think, the underpinning of all of this. Because if you don't value it, if you don't value the learning, there's a book by a lady named Carol Dweck called Mindset. And it's fundamentally this idea of having a growth mindset, of really embracing all of our experiences, the failures, the successes. And so for me, in my mindset, there is no defeat. It's all good. It's either a learning or it's a success, if you will. And when you do that, your whole journey, every day is pleasant and a joy and a win, because you celebrate the successes and the failures equally. And when you do that, you're not on that up and down roller coaster. You're really on an even keel. And when you're on an even keel and you're not feeling out of control emotionally, you're so much more effective.
Absolutely. Clear mind gives you great focus. How can our listeners find out more about you and your work?
Well, I've made it super easy. It's Go For No. It's goforno.com and Go For No on all social media channels. And so whether it's Instagram or Facebook, we have a big Facebook page. And I love to have people come over, and I try to push out a lot of interesting content and what I call motivation, so people can get motivated and keep it going in their lives and in their business.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this wisdom. It's been amazing, and I could talk to you all day, but unfortunately we've come to the end of our time. And thank you everyone who's been watching and listening in. I hope you got so much wonderful resources and information, advice from this. And until next time, see you then. Bye-bye.